I walked into that law office thinking I was about to witness my mother's final act of love. Instead, I watched her hand my sister $30 million while I got nothing but a worn leather journal and a note that said, "Read this alone." My sister's smug smile said it all. She'd won. She'd always been the favorite, and now she had the fortune to prove it. But when the lawyer cleared his throat and said there was one more document, one my mother had sealed until after the will was read, my sister's face went white. What came next wasn't just a revelation. It was my mother's perfectly orchestrated revenge from beyond the grave, and it destroyed everything my sister thought she'd won. Before we dive into this incredible story of betrayal, secrets, and justice served cold, please take a moment to subscribe to Revenge Unleashed, hit that like button, and drop a comment below telling us about a time someone underestimated you. Your support keeps these powerful stories coming, and trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. My name is Emma, and for 28 years, I lived in the shadow of my older sister, Victoria. Our mother, Catherine Harrington, built a real estate empire from nothing, turning a single property into a portfolio worth over $50 million. She was brilliant, ruthless in business, and impossible to read at home. Victoria was her mirror image, confident and commanding, always dressed like she was heading to a board meeting even at family dinners. I was different. Quieter. I taught third grade, lived in a modest apartment, and never quite fit into the world of power lunches and luxury that defined my family. Mom always seemed disappointed in my choices. She'd ask when I was going to do something meaningful with my life, as if shaping young minds somehow didn't count. Victoria would sit there with that knowing smile, the golden child who'd followed Mom into the business, who drove the right car and married the right man. Every family gathering felt like a performance where I'd already been cast as the understudy. When Mom got sick, the cancer moving fast and merciless, Victoria was there constantly. She'd update everyone on Mom's condition, manage the medical team, and make all the decisions. I visited when I could, usually getting squeezed in between Victoria's carefully scheduled visits. On one of my last visits alone with Mom, she seemed different. Softer. She held my hand and said, "Emma, I need you to trust me. No matter what happens, trust that I see you." I didn't understand what she meant then. I thought it was the morphine talking. The funeral was enormous. Business partners, politicians, society people who barely knew my mother but wanted to be seen. Victoria orchestrated everything, playing the devoted daughter to perfection. I stood in the background, accepting condolences from people who couldn't remember my name. The whole time, Victoria kept touching the pearl necklace Mom always wore, the one she'd apparently given to Victoria during her final days. Another symbol of who really mattered. 3 weeks later, we gathered at the law office of Morrison and Associates. The building was all marble and mahogany, the kind of place designed to remind you that serious money was at stake. Victoria arrived with her husband, Marcus, both of them dressed in expensive black, the picture of elegant grief. I wore a simple dress from Target and carried the tote bag I used for school supplies. Mr. Morrison was exactly what you'd expect, silver-haired, grave expression, expensive suit. He offered condolences that felt rehearsed and invited us to sit. The conference room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, the kind of view that cost more than most people's houses. Victoria sat across from me, her posture perfect, her face composed. She already knew what was coming. I could see it in her eyes. Mr. Morrison opened the will and began reading. The legal language washed over me until he got to the assets. To my daughter Victoria Marie Harrington, I leave the entirety of my business holdings, properties, and investment portfolio, valued at approximately $30 million. Victoria didn't even flinch. She just nodded slightly, as if accepting something she'd always known was hers. Marcus squeezed her hand. My stomach dropped, but I wasn't surprised. This was exactly how our family had always worked. Then Mr. Morrison turned to me. To my daughter Emma Rose Harrington, I leave my personal effects including jewelry, photographs, and my private journal, along with a letter to be read in private. He slid a manila envelope across the table to me, along with a wooden box I recognized from Mom's bedroom. That was it. 28 years of being her daughter, and I got her old diary and some photos. Victoria reached across the table and touched my arm. "Emma, I know this might seem unfair, but Mom knew you were never interested in the business. This is what makes sense." Her voice dripped with false sympathy. I wanted to scream, to flip the table, to demand why I wasn't worth anything to the woman who raised me. Instead, I just nodded and started gathering my things. That's when Mr. Morrison cleared his throat. Actually, there is one more document. Mrs. Harrington left a sealed letter with instructions that it only be opened and read aloud after the will had been delivered. He produced a cream-colored envelope with my mother's distinctive handwriting across the front. Victoria's confident expression flickered for just a second. Mr. Morrison opened the envelope carefully and began to read. If you're hearing this, then my will has been read and Victoria has received everything she expected. Victoria, you always were Southwest certain of your place in my life, so convinced that your ambition and your mirror image of my business sense made you the worthy heir. You spent years positioning yourself, didn't you? Making sure you were indispensable. Making sure Emma seemed small by comparison. The lawyer paused, looking uncomfortable, but continued. What you didn't know is that I've been aware of your embezzlement for the past 3 years. Yes, Victoria. I know about the shell companies, the redirected funds, the properties you purchased using money stolen from my business. I have documentation of every transaction, every forged signature, every lie you told to cover your tracks. It totals approximately $8 million. Victoria shot to her feet. This is insane. She was sick, she didn't know what she was saying. But her face had gone chalk white, and her hands were shaking. Mr. Morrison kept reading, his voice steady. I'm giving you the business and the money because I want you to have something to lose. The journal I'm leaving to Emma contains copies of all the evidence. She also has a letter from me explaining everything, including the fact that I've already reported your crimes to the FBI. They've been building a case for the past 6 months. By the time this will is read, they'll have everything they need. You'll have about a week before they freeze your assets and bring charges. The room went completely silent. I could hear Victoria breathing, fast and panicked. Marcus had moved away from her, his face a mixture of shock and anger. Mr. Morrison continued. Emma, my sweet girl who I pushed away because I needed Victoria to think she'd won. I'm so sorry for the pain I caused you. But you have something Victoria never had, integrity. The journal explains everything, including how to access the separate account I established in your name 5 years ago. It contains $15 million, carefully moved and hidden from the business accounts Victoria had access to. This is your inheritance. Use it wisely, use it kindly, and use it to build whatever life you want. My hands were shaking as I opened the wooden box. Inside was the journal, thick and worn, with dozens of bookmarks and sticky notes. Tucked inside the front cover was another envelope with my name on it. But Mr. Morrison wasn't finished. Victoria, you're probably wondering why I did it this way. Why not just turn you in? Why the elaborate performance? Because I wanted you to feel, for just a few minutes, like you'd won. Like you'd gotten everything you schemed and stole for. I wanted you to sit there feeling superior to your sister one last time. And then I wanted you to understand that Emma, the daughter you dismissed and belittled, is the one who actually mattered. She's the one I trusted. She's the one I loved. And she's the one who will be free while you face the consequences of your choices. Victoria lunged toward me, her face twisted with rage, but Mr. Morrison stood up. Mrs. Dawson, I should inform you that this meeting is being recorded, as per your mother's instructions. I'd suggest you contact a criminal attorney immediately. Everything that happened next was a blur. Victoria screaming that I'd manipulated Mom, that I'd poisoned her against her own daughter. Marcus quietly asking Mr. Morrison for a recommendation for a divorce attorney. Security being called when Victoria tried to grab the journal from my hands. I just sat there, holding my mother's final gift, trying to process what had just happened. The next few days were surreal. I read Mom's journal cover to cover, tears streaming down my face as I finally understood. She'd known about Victoria's theft almost from the beginning but needed time to gather evidence that would hold up in court. She distanced herself from me not out of disappointment but to protect me, to make sure Victoria never saw me as a threat or tried to implicate me in her schemes. Every cold comment, every dismissal, had been an act to keep me safe while she built her case. The letter she left me was even more devastating. She apologized for the years of seeming indifference, explained that she saw herself in Victoria and hated it, and told me that watching me choose teaching over money had given her hope that she'd done something right as a mother. You chose meaning over wealth, she wrote. You chose to build up children instead of tearing down competitors. You are everything I wish I had been, and I am so proud of you. The FBI arrested Victoria 6 days after the will reading. The news coverage was massive. The business mogul's daughter, caught embezzling millions, facing decades in prison. Her house was seized, her accounts frozen, her reputation destroyed. Marcus filed for divorce within a week, and I heard through the legal grapevine that he was cooperating with prosecutors in exchange for immunity. I could have felt sorry for her. Maybe I should have. But every time I thought about forgiving her, I remembered that smug smile in the lawyer's office, the years of condescension, the way she'd made me feel small and worthless. She hadn't just stolen from Mom. She'd stolen my relationship with my mother, forcing Mom to push me away to execute her plan. I used some of Mom's money to establish a foundation for teacher support and childhood literacy. I bought a house, nothing extravagant, but mine. And I kept teaching because Mom was right. I'd chosen meaning over wealth, and that choice had saved me from becoming someone like Victoria. The trial lasted 3 months. Victoria was convicted on 14 counts of embezzlement, fraud, and forgery. She got 12 years in federal prison. I attended the sentencing, sitting in the back of the courtroom. When the judge read the sentence, Victoria turned and looked at me. For just a second, I saw the sister I'd grown up with, before the greed and ambition had consumed her. Then her lawyer led her away, and she was gone. People ask me if I feel guilty, if I wish things had ended differently. The truth is complicated. I grieve for the sister I might have had, for the mother I only really knew through her journal. But I don't regret what Mom did. She taught Victoria the most important lesson of her life, that there are consequences for betrayal, that stealing from family is the ultimate sin, and that sometimes the person you underestimate is the one who ends up holding all the cards. My mother spent her last months orchestrating the perfect revenge, not out of cruelty but out of love for me and a desire to see justice done. She gave Victoria exactly what she wanted, just long enough for her to understand what she was about to lose. And she gave me something more valuable than money, the truth, validation, and the knowledge that I was seen and loved exactly as I was. Every day, I think about Mom's last words to me, trust me. She'd been playing the longest game, sacrificing our relationship in the present to secure my future and Victoria's accountability. It was a gamble that required her to die before revealing the truth, to let me suffer in the dark right up until the moment everything changed. That's the thing about revenge served from beyond the grave. It's final. There's no arguing with a dead woman, no appealing to her mercy, no way to manipulate your way out. Mom made sure her last act in this world was both punishment and gift, justice and love, all wrapped in a revelation that changed everything. Sometimes the people who love us most show it in ways we can't understand until the story is over. And sometimes revenge isn't about hatred. It's about making sure the truth finally comes to light, no matter what it costs.